These 26 kids were kidnapped and buried alive. So this is Ed, and he was a school bus driver. It's 1976 and Ed is driving his normal bus route, but he notices a white van stops in the middle of the road. And Ed's like, oh, his car must be having some sort of trouble. So he pulls over to try and help them. But that's when two men get out of the van and they're wearing nylon stockings over their head. Yeah, not a good look. But they're carrying large weapons. So they start approaching the school bus. And Ed's like, I need to look out for these kids. So he keeps it cool because he really doesn't want to piss these guys off. They hijack the school bus and they start to drive away. And there's another guy driving behind them. So now there's 3 kidnappers. So they take Ed and the 26 kids to a secluded area. And that's when they loaded the 26 kids and Ed into 2 vans. And then they drive for 12 hours. So now the parents realize their kids are missing. And now everyone's starting to panic. The phones are ringing, families and community members are calling, the media's calling, everything is just getting out of hand. So meanwhile, Ed and the children are taken 100 miles away from home. But the 2 vans suddenly stop. So then the 3 guys take Ed out of the van and slam the door. And they keep taking each person out of the van one by one. So what happens to Ed and all these kids? These 3 douchebags decided to shove each and every one of them down a hole they had buried underground. And they had buried a small moving van underground. There were dirty mattresses on the ground, a small amount of food and water, and the kidnappers got a single roll of toilet paper and threw it down the hole for them, and then told them they would be back. Then they cover the hole with a manhole cover, and they bury over it. So who are the kidnappers? This is Fred, and his family has a lot of money. His family made $80 million the year of the kidnapping, which would almost be $400 million today. And this is James and Richard. They were brothers, and they also had a lot of money. But they were all cut off from daddy's money. So they came up with an idea to get rich. So they kidnapped these 26 children so they could ask the state of California for a $5 million ransom. And they planned this for a year and a half. So after they buried the 26 children and Ed alive, they tried to call the police for ransom. But the phones are ringing off the hooks, so their call doesn't go through. So they're like, okay, never mind, we'll try again tomorrow. And they take a nap. Meanwhile, Ed and the 26 children are buried underground for 12 hours. And they are running out of air. And all that food that was left was gone. So they're just like, we need to get out of here. So they stack all the mattresses they had on top of each other and start standing on each other's shoulders so that they can reach the manhole cover 12 feet above them. This is a 14-year-old Michael, and he manages to wiggle the manhole a little bit. So Ed climbs up and he manages to open it up a little bit for him so that Michael could wedge off a piece of wood and wiggle the manhole off. The kidnappers also put a heavy piece of wood over the manhole. So Michael keeps bashing and tearing the wood with his bare hands until 4 hours later. Michael sees sunlight and they all escape. So when the 3 kidnappers wake up, they see on the news that all their victims have escaped. So they try to flee the country. But they were easily found because Fred buried the kids in a rock quarry owned by his father. And multiple people had seen Fred digging holes at that rock quarry. The police had even found documents of their whole plan in their homes. These guys are probably the most lousy criminals I've ever heard of.